In our view, all of this is a result of digitization, right? So nothing happens without digitization. And we have some key macro trends that are accelerating the move towards digitization, which in turn is accelerating automation, disintermediation, mobilization, and virtualization, right? So a lot of shuns there. And if you look at the two highlighted items, the IoT or connected devices, smart devices, they, in our view, are the linchpin of this growth towards digitization and eventually artificial intelligence. We had a conversation this morning, and Pranav mentioned that there is growth in connected devices, but we haven't really reached that point. It's the adoption is not there yet. I agree with that to a point, but I think based on what we're seeing in the market, at least our view is we are past the inflection point, right? Today the conversation is not about, is this device useful? Should you be using it? Should you not be using it? It's more about what's the cost? What am I getting out of it? And what data are you getting, and how does it impact my insurance rates? Are you going to ding me for it, right? So it's an education problem today. It's a little bit of a cost problem. The sort of high level awareness and discovery problem has been solved. So these are some numbers I got from IBM. It's pretty interesting. I mean, 11 gigabytes of monthly mobile data. I mean, that's a pretty robust amount of data that's being generated. And if you look at the amount of wearable devices that were shipped out in 2016, this is 2-year-old data. It's pretty unique. The 150 million emails every minute, it becomes interesting if you look at it. An average email size is about 1 megabyte, and 150 million emails every minute. Imagine the size of data that's been generated, right? For those of us who have been around since the old good old days where we had to dial into a connection, 156 kilobytes. Imagine an average email of today, it'll take you about 10 minutes to download with that speed, right? So what that really tells you is infrastructure never gets to the end state. Infrastructure never keeps up with the demand, because the more you upgrade the infrastructure, the more traffic you get, and the more traffic you get, the more obsolete infrastructure gets. And that's a perpetual problem. You see it in highways as well. Those of you who've been to Boston, the big dig took us 10 years, $12 billion, and it's useless now. Not really. So this is sort of a concept I stole from Amazon. So in Amazon, it's called the feedback loop. Basically, the way to think about it is to answer the previous question again about adoption of IoT and AI and all those things. I think we are past the inflection point, and I think we are at a stage where there's an acceleration. IoT 5 years ago was fighting for awareness. It's fighting for discoverability. It's fighting for a use case that said, adopt me. What we have seen is people have started adopting Nest devices, smart things, smart TVs, so on and so forth, which is generating data. As more and more data is generated, algorithms are getting better. As algorithms get better, AI's efficacy is increasing. As AI's efficacy is increasing, companies are able to make better decisions. As they're able to make better decisions, their return on investments is going high, which allows them to subsidize more IoT devices, which increases the adoption curve, because now it's getting cheaper, right? So it's a downward spiral for cost and an accelerating upward spiral for data and AI. We have created a monster, right? And the monster is a really mobile, really tech-savvy customer who needs immediate gratification, right? And so we use what we call the Sift Framework, which is they want things which are simple, innovative, fast, and transparent. And we say for a product or a service or a solution to succeed, they need 2 or more of these. You can't just have a simple thing without it being fast. So you have to have at least 2 of these in any product or service. The more you have, the better off you are, but at least 2. So customers demanding quick, fast solutions, and in insurance industry, what we have discovered is we are none of these, or at least we were none of these. We're changing. We were none of these. It created such a big gap in customer demand, customer needs, and what the market was delivering, that our industry created a big gap in the market, right? And that gap came in, was being filled by insurtechs, right? And so the gap existed. Investors saw this. They started funding insurtech companies. Regulators saw the investor interest. They have big lobbies. They saw the investor interest. They saw new startups come in. They saw the whole thing about customer experience, customer behavior. They started changing. So the NAIC was formed to understand innovation. They're open to radical ideas. The commissioner of Kansas is on record saying if Lemonade comes to Kansas, he'll open them with open arms, right? So that's the framework we are living in. And then industry, we are playing catch up, right? So on one hand, we are playing catch up because we took customer for granted, and we said, the only thing we have to do is spend billions and billions in advertising, and as long as the customers know about us, they'll come to us. As long as we keep reducing prices, they'll come to us. Or we have affinity channels, they'll come to us. And that's all we did. What we didn't realize, or what we are starting to realize now, is while we were focusing on selling the same product that we've been selling for 100 years to customers who are changing, the risk pool is shifting from under us, right? The cars are moving from personal to commercial space, and actually they might even be moving away from commercial space. The risk pool might be getting eliminated, right? With what's going on with Tesla and Volvo and others, it won't get eliminated, but it'll shift, right? I mean, if there's risk, someone has to take it. Whether insurance company takes it, or auto manufacturer takes it, or customer takes it, someone has to take it. And we are seeing newer business models. And the other thing which is relevant really here is this is where IoT comes in. We are moving from risk mitigation to risk avoidance, right? Which is used to be flooding in the basement. You will send ServPro, reduce the cost as much as possible, pay the claim, get out of here. Average claim of a water damage in a basement is $10,000. Now we're looking at IoT and we're saying, okay, we'll have automatic water shutoffs. We'll have IoT sensors in the basement, and the minute there's a leak detected, the automatic water shutoff will cut off the water supply. The leak will be contained. Average loss of, instead of $10,000, it's $2,000. You're able to subsidize a lot, right? So that's where we're looking at. So we talked about some of the drivers, some of the use cases. How is that impacting insurance right now? So I would like to step back a little and maybe take a historical perspective, right? So 200 years ago, we had the Industrial Revolution, right? The Industrial Age, 1700s, 1800s. And it took repetitive physical tasks that required muscle power, and it automated them, right? And so we had machines, in factories, trains, so on and so forth. And we are seeing the same movement now where instead of replacing or augmenting muscular power, we are replacing or augmenting mental brain power, right? So sensors are being replaced by IoT, data is being replaced by big data, information is replaced by machine learning, and it's not replaced, it's a corollary word. It's the same thing, but everything is at scale. And so that's how we have to look at AI. And if you look at how it impacts insurance, from product development to pricing to distribution to claims management, there's no single area that's untouched. And this is a slide that was talked. When I first saw the slide, one of my analysts built it for me. And when I looked at this slide, I was flabbergasted. And if you look at this, and if you saw what Margaret showed in her screen, this is already ripe for automation, anyways, right? You said finance and accounting, they're going to go away. So look. I mean, what's next for disintermediation? Claims, right? I mean, everything is dark blue there. We're already seeing it. Parametric insurance, this and that. My company's launched some products like that. So, those of us who've been in the insurance industry for just a little bit, when we see things like that, we take this to our, the board or others, and then people say, hey, no, we'll keep doing things the way we are doing. Something's got to give. Something's got to give. And so the next section, I'll talk about that a little bit. So, so we talked about AI changing product, underwriting, claims, all of those things. So this is an example of something that's already happening. So when I talk about AI taking over pieces of insurance value chain, it's not hypothetical, it's real. It's happening right now, even as we speak. This is a product we launched last year. It's called Stork. It's a flight delay insurance, white label product, where it's parametric. Customer doesn't have to do anything. Customer doesn't have to file a claim, nothing. We integrate with the weather company, the flight stats, and once we detect that a flight has been delayed more than a few hours, nothing to do with weather, because weather is act of God. If we detect all of these things, the money automatically hits the customer's bank account. Customer doesn't have to do anything. He wakes up the next morning, he gets a notification from the bank, oh, you have the money in your bank. It's as simple. It's already happening. This is not the only industry. It's going to be, this is not the only risk. There are others. And this is just Tesla. We talked about how car insurance is evolving. And Tesla has already indicated that in the future they will be selling insurance bundled with the car. So the car when you purchase a car, insurance is already there. Volvo came out a couple of months ago with the same program as well. At the end of the day, the auto risk is not going away in the near future, because the only time it goes away is every car is automated, driving conditions are perfect, and the road conditions are great, right? As long as there's even one car out there which is not fully automated, as long as you still have human beings driving the car in manual mode, and so on and so forth, there will always be auto insurance. The question then becomes, how much of that insurance is going to be done by insurance companies versus done by the automotive companies? As they're able to reduce their risk, they will feel more and more comfortable taking on the insurance risk, and they'll do it. The world is changing. We know that. We're all in agreement with that. And one of the most important things that, in my mind, need to change for the insurance industry to take advantage of the situation is the organization culture. And for the culture, the biggest subset of that is we need to be nimble. We need to have agility. Agile culture is the single most important thing. If we don't know how to experiment rapidly, fail rapidly, test out new things quickly, cheaply, we won't succeed. Amazon runs my team, and I was small part of a team, one part of many data analyst teams. My team, we ran hundreds of experiments a week, and it was so. And in insurance companies, and we were talking about it with folks this morning, where to run an experiment, the business owners, sponsors have to submit a project. You have to intake it, you have to approve it, you have to prioritize it, you run it, then it fails, then he doesn't send you any more projects, then you have to find another sponsor, right? There's a very unique statistic, which is 80% of all time that goes into developing a data project is in data cleansing, 80% of the time. 90% of all data projects don't get deployed. So there's a 2% effectiveness of a data project, 2%. What it really means is our intake mechanisms need to change. We can, data teams should be like agile ninjas. They should have access to all the data that's out there. Now with GDPR and the Chinese regulations, it's going to be difficult, but they should have access to as much data as possible. They should be running their own experiments, generating hypotheses and insights, running it upstream and saying, hey, this is something we want to do. Do we have a sponsor? That's the way to do it. So change is needed, but it's not easy, right? I mean, we are like large ocean tankers, oil tankers in the ocean. We are geared to work a certain way, process-driven, standardized. By the way, when you hear the word standardized, what's the first thing that comes to your mind based on the conversations we had this morning? Right, so Margaret said customer experience, Samantha said customer experience. Standardization and customer experience don't go hand in hand. I mean, they're the exact opposite of each other. When you're talking about customization and customer experience, and in the same breath you talk about standardization plus customization equals failure, right? I mean, that's how it works. So, we need to change, we know that, but the multiple issues with that, right? The first issue is the structural issue. And throughout the day we've been talking about it. We talked about the brand impact, right, which is how can we deploy this new technology if it touches our customer, and what kind of impact would it have. Organizational, we'll talk about organizational a little bit more. And then obviously regulatory, right? I think one of the bigger limitations of data usage today that at least I'm seeing in my world is regulatory issues, right? I can't run the kind of pricing I want to run because regulators don't allow me to, and frankly they're right, because insurance is, it's risk sharing. You can't, if you price it too accurately, you're not going to be able to sell to everyone. And then privacy issues and all those things. And then I think one of the other big issues, regional variances. What I can do in Massachusetts is different from what I can do in Texas, and all of these things play in. So what it means is I can create a global program. The program has to be, one large program has to be broken up into regions, and it loses its efficacy and ROI doing that. The other one is, the other big challenge is our behavior. The way we do things, the way our org, our incentives are structured. We are given metrics at the beginning of the year: reduce LEE by 5%, reduce this by that, and do by that. And our goal is to make our existing product cheaper, faster, better, or efficient, right? With innovation, in order to counter the insurtechs, we have to actually break the product we have right now, right? So there's a misalignment in terms of what we need to do versus what we're doing. I'm not saying that is wrong there. I mean, if I'm bringing in 80% of the revenue, and you tell me that change everything you're doing, I'm going to say you're nuts. It doesn't work that way. But if you tell me, keep doing what you're doing, but do the small side projects, really quick, really rapid, where the cost of failure is low. Maybe they don't even touch customers. That's what we should be doing. So this is nimble, this is agile, right? So this is the biggest cultural change we need. And the only way I've seen it work is when it becomes part of your MBO. If every person gets a metric that says you have to participate in 10 innovation projects a year, okay, then how do you define innovation? Let's forget about that. Let's say everybody agrees to that, right? Unless you have that in your metrics, you will not be incentivized. The other thing, organizations need to have a mechanism to deal with blockers. Every organization has blockers. There is no accountability for blockers. It's so easy to block things that I'm surprised more things don't get blocked. There's no penalty. At Amazon, we had a penalty. If you are classified as a blocker again and again and again, and it keeps showing up in your feedback, you're in trouble. You don't want to be a blocker. Same thing needs to happen to our industry as well. And I just want to show, the final thing is, it is challenging. It is complex. So this is as complex a slide I could find, and so I just put it there. I mean, it's no wonder you look at the slide and you glaze over, right? You have a proliferation of data sources, you have proliferation of vendors, platforms, technologies, that no wonder it's not easy. So the cultural issues, the behavioral issues, but there are also some real issues technology issues that we haven't solved yet. But at the end of the day, I think the time for excuses is over, right? I mean, if you look at this, there are 6 odd industries which have totally changed. Companies that existed, 20 years ago don't even exist. And I found this statistic, which is only 12% of Fortune 500 companies from 1955 are still in business today. That is a really stark number. Really stark number. I used to work for Arthur Andersen. I don't know how many of you know about it. When I started in Arthur Andersen, it was the gig in town. If you worked in Arthur Andersen, you were golden. 2 years after I joined, it went belly up, out of business, right? So, and that was nothing to do with customer experience, something else. But what I'm saying is things are moving so fast. And then I'm going to come back to what everybody has already talked about, right? Which is, in order to change, in order to deliver what we need to deliver, we have to change how we develop, manage, and deliver products, right? So it starts with distribution, where, like I said, we focused on TV advertising and all those things, right? Our cost of acquisition is $600, highest in the industry. Insurance industry accounts for about 15% of Google's ad revenue, right? So that's why Google will not compete with insurance, because it doesn't want to lose that. It needs to break even. For losing its ad revenue, it needs to get 20% of the insurance market. So that's why it won't get, right? So heavy investment in marketing and channels to customer experience, right? They're not in conflict with each other, but if you have the right customer experience, the attrition rates are going up, right? I'm not talking about USAA or Amica. You guys are great. But in the rest of the industry, the shopping behavior is increasing. In 2011, we did a study, and only less than 20% of the people shopped for insurance on an annual basis, and out of that 20%, only a certain percentage actually switched. 2014, we did that study. 40% of the people were actively shopping at any given point of time, right? That number is probably higher today, right? So unless you are USAA and Amica, everybody else needs to worry about, right? And if you can create that customer experience where you can build that loyalty, which is built not just on price but also experience, I think you'll do well. From a product perspective, I think the most important change that we need to work towards is customization and on-demand products, right? And I think that's where AI's unique contribution is going to be, because customization means we know each customer individually, using big data to understand the customer's risk behavior, propensity for attrition, so on and so forth, and basis of that we can create on-demand products. One of the concepts that I'm a big proponent of is risk wallet, right? Which is, I as an individual have a certain amount of risk inherent in me. My behavior doesn't change whether I'm in Boston or Miami, whether I'm driving a BMW or a Toyota, whether I'm traveling someplace. As a risk, I'm pretty constant, as are most of us. Our behaviors don't change drastically from period to period. And if you can relate a risk score to an individual and then have a frequency severity or severity metrics for activities, it's portable. It becomes very portable. Now you don't have to run so many analytics, because you know what the person is doing, and you can sell a whole lot of products. You can actually let customer create its own product.